Hello, and welcome to another episode of Somewhat Damaged. I'm your host, Greg Alperin, and with me, as always, John B. This week, we welcome the legendary Greg Fitzsimmons.
Happy Rosh Hashanah.
Hey, Shana Tova, baby.
Happy New Year to everybody. Right? It is Happy New Year. That's what today is, or yesterday.
It's Happy New Year? Okay, got it.
Just making sure. It's
Yeah.
like the 6th
Yom
out.
Kippur is the next one where we have to be sorry for everything.
Right. And I'm not supposed to eat for 24 hours.
Correct.
I typically try to get to 9:30 a.m. and I feel good about myself.
Not bad. It's not bad.
Hey, it's a solid 9.5 hours into the day. So I look at it as a win.
Well, I'm a
you
goy,
Jewish?
so I eat.
I am. Yeah,
Okay.
I am. I'm a non-practicing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was raised. Actually, it's funny. My mother is 100% Italian Catholic from the Bronx,
What
Right.
part of the Bronx?
country club.
Oh, yeah. I was born in Throgs Neck, which is the
Yeah.
next.
Yeah.
next
Yep. My dad's born in New Rochelle. They lived in Pelham. And my father was Jewish, right? So I grew up and my father only had one sibling who lived in the South. So we never saw them. I grew up going to an Italian dinner every Sunday at 11 a.m.
Wow.
A little kid until I was through college, right? So I lived in this like weird world, and we were raised, I had a bar mitzvah, but my mother, being the Catholic, was the most Jewish one in my family.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So I don't really practice.
Is this a podcast, by the way?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. I didn't know if you're going to start and go, okay, here's the.
I'll let all that fun shit in later. No, we get right to it, Greg.
Right.
we try to throw a little curveball.
Yeah, right. Straight into the fire.
Right into the fire. Usually it's John's job. John usually comes out swinging, but he's a little subdued today.
I've got a roast. I've got a brisket in the oven right now, and I'm just thinking about it, and I'm just like salivating over it. I'm just really
Wow.
excited to eat it. But it is good to see you, Greg.
Hey, I wish I was there. I love brisket.
Yeah, man.
Ew. How was your family vacation?
It was good. We did a lot of eating out, which Jesus Christ, it's expensive in New York. And especially when your kids don't really get the concept of like, when you're at a nice restaurant, you don't get an appetizer and order from the bottom right side of the menu. Bottom right, that's not for you. That's not your area. That's Wall Street guy trying to get laid area.
Yeah.
Your left, center left. And my kid goes, Dad, can I get a lobster? And I go, I don't know. Can you get an A? How about you get an A? And then you get a lobster.
Yeah, I'm gonna start using that trick. It's so funny. That's so incredibly familiar because how old are your kids?
16, no, what am I saying? 18 and 20.
Okay, so you're a little older than mine. Mine's 14 or 15, 14, and gonna be 18. And my 14-year-old has like Rolls Royce tastes, right?
Yeah.
It's absurd. So last weekend I told John this story. He knows where I'm going. He's already laughing. He goes to this French bistro. Like it's like French bistro down the street from our house by the beach. And he goes with 3 of his little flyboy buddies, right?
Uh-huh.
They're a freshman in high school, hadn't even started yet. They go down to eat in this place and they ordered a lobster roll, steak frites, right? This like special kind of chicken. It's called, it's got some funky name and
Fried?
no, it's like I don't know, not boiled, like baked chicken, but it's got a weird chicken name. I don't get it.
Yeah.
And cheese plate. Their bill was $179 for 4 kids. They left a 6% tip.
Oh, yeah. No, I yell at my son about that. I'll ask him, show me your fucking check. I want to see how much tip you left on that.
Right. And I told him the next day, when I found out, I'm like, you sons of bitches better walk back into that place and give that girl the 14% that you owe her. Like you're never like going out again. And then I come to find they ordered non-alcoholic beers and were served.
Why wouldn't they be?
Non-alcohol, 14-year-old kids?
You can't. Non-alcoholic beer has no alcohol.
Well, it does have a little bit of alcohol, but
No, it's orange juice has more alcohol in it than non-alcoholic beer.
does it really?
Yeah.
Huh.
It's
But-
negligible.
No, I know it's negligible, but
I just see these fucking kids hanging out, fucking drinking back some Heineken's double zeros and like having a cheese plate. And I had to ask the question. I was like, did they eat the cheese plate afterwards as like nice little desserts almost? And no, they didn't do that. But if they had that fine taste, that been fantastic. But just seeing Greg's 14-year-old kid fucking leg up, fucking.
I love it. Does he have a job? Does he have?
oh,
income?
of course not. Doesn't have a job. He keeps telling me how he's going to go caddy at the golf club. I'm like, it's about to be winter. Like no one's playing
Yeah.
golf
Right.
in Connecticut in the winter. So,
Wait, where were you in? Where in New York were you vacationing? out on the island?
We stayed on the Upper West Side for about
Oh,
5 or 6
thanks.
days.
Didn't even
And
say
then
hi. Gotcha.
We went up to Westchester, and then we went to Hamilton, New York, which is up where Colgate College is. I got a buddy who's got a house on a lake up there.
Ooh, are you a lake guy? Do you
Lake
do the
guy. He's got a rope swing. He's got this 50-foot rope swing that goes up. He's got like a bank on the lake that's about 8 feet high, and then he's got a lifeguard chair on top of that, and the rope hangs over the lake, and you go like swooping down, and then you come up, and then people all throw footballs at you, and you try to catch the football before you hit the water.
and you caught one. I saw you posted it, right?
I
Or did you
caught
throw it?
one,
You caught it. Yeah.
And then we do a thing, and then he's got a bocce court, ping pong table. He's got a wood burning pizza oven outside. He's got canoes, kayaks. He's got a hot tub, and then we play this thing called lake ball, where one guy stands on the dock with a bat, and there's a water hose that suspends the wiffle ball in midair, and you hit it, and then you dive in the water, and all the fielders are out on like inner tubes and like floating chairs, and they all chase the ball down, and then first base is like this buoy that he set up with an anchor. Second base is the top of the rope swing, the lifeguard chair. That's second base. Third base, you swing down off of it to another buoy, and then home place is back to the dock again. And we played for hours. It was unbelievable. It was like rain. There was a thunderstorm, and we kept playing the game.
So wait, the ball is suspended on a hose. The water shooting out.
Yeah,
to
the
keep
water
ball in
shooting
the air.
up.
Yeah, it's like a fountain. It's like a fountain that shoots up, and the
Right.
ball, if you put it just right, it suspends the ball in midair, and then you hit it off of that.
Cool.
Wow, that's wild.
That's so cool. Oh my god. I mean, you must have had a blast up there. I mean, was this the first time getting away since the pandemic?
You mean going on the road?
Yeah, just like hanging out for vacation, or were you able to grab some vacation time as soon as the vax came out?
Yeah, I've been on the road. Like during the pandemic, I went out like 3 or 4 times, 3 or 4 weekends, and then since the spring, since the vaccination, I've been out pretty regularly.
Yeah.
But it was half full, half capacity rooms for a while, so that meant half the paycheck, which
Right.
sucked. But now it's back to full capacity, hitting some bonuses. People are coming out. It's great.
I'm sure. I think I told you when we were in LA that I saw you in Plano like a week or two before the world, shut down.
Yeah.
And was that the last time you went out before everything shut? That was like the end of February.
Yeah, that must have been it. Yeah, because I was supposed to come to New York on St. Patrick's Day. I had this theater show in Long Island that was sold out. It was like nice money.
Right.
And I was supposed to fly out, and like the day before I was getting on the plane, they were like, "Nah, we're canceling it." And that was it. And the worst is like, if you had told me then it's gonna be a year, I would have structured my year very differently. I would have really accomplished some shit. Like to me, it felt like it just turned into a holding pattern, like in a car race when there's an accident and they wave the yellow flag and you don't pass anybody and you stay in your lane. That's kind of the mentality that I got into. because I kept waiting for it to end.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, fucking assholes like Bo Burnham go and put out like this beautiful creative special that he directed and lit and wrote, and I was just like, oh man, that's not fair. That's not fair to not go into a low grade depression and just jerk off, smoke pot, and watch Netflix.
Like 900 million people. But I think, I don't know if I told John this part about what was amazing on that night I saw you, is I went on a Thursday, right? Because I just happened to be in town. I always check out the clubs when I'm traveling, which is usually a lot pre all this shit. And I saw you were in Plano, and Plano was like 45 minutes from where I was staying. I'm like, screw it, I'm going to see this show. I'm not, why wouldn't I do that? So I go, it's Thursday night. We're sitting there in the front, and you come out and you start talking to a couple people in the audience, and you asked them how much they paid for their tickets. And they were like, it was free. And then you walked off stage. Right. And I was hysterical. I was like, this is amazing. He just told, and John, if you've never been to this club, it's a long walk from the stage to where, like,
it was a commitment. It was a commitment.
It was like you committed to the
to the bit, baby.
Yeah.
Commit to the bit.
Goes off stage. It was like he did an encore pre-show. Like goes down, waited a couple of minutes, and then comes back, and it was so incredibly funny. Did you know that it was free on Thursdays?
No, I had no idea.
Right.
I show up, I'm expecting like commit, and it was a decent turnout. So I was like, all right, good. People care. They're not that scared of the pandemic. They're going to reach into their pockets. And then, that was too low stakes.
Yeah.
I need some commitment from my audience. I want to get in the game. I'm
like, he had to know that it's Thursday night's free night in this place, because they advertise it for all their shows. Thursday night free, Friday, Saturday, whatever. And I mean, I was in tears.
How did they afford to pay me?
I have no idea. Well, you know what?
We hit that bonus of drink sales, baby. Thursday price is a little bit higher, I bet you, on a Bud Light than on a Saturday night. I mean, that's the only way. It was kind of a
hipster space. It was like an art gallery space, and it was a lot of hipsters. Like, I think it was more like Pabst Blue Ribbons.
Yeah. It was a weird club. It was like in a weird strip mall, and it was just like a big. It looked like, you just next door neighbor was a typical Chinese food place, and then a gym next door, and it was a weird place, which I think they closed that location down now.
Yeah,
but I mean, we always talk about these malls.
I think there's another club opening in Plano. I think Helium Comedy Club is opening.
Oh, really? Oh, maybe they took that.
Yeah, I heard that. But we always make fun of these like strip mall and mall, comedy clubs. But like, if you really look at it, like if you look at New York City, like it's kind of the same thing. You know what I mean? The Cellar was right next to a McDonald's, and like, with 3 sheets. We've got other places. You can come up by us. We're next to a Marshall's, for God's sakes, in the Upper West Side. So I mean, like, is it weird? Yeah. But is it far off? I mean, no, not really. I mean, even LA. I mean, once you get out of the store, right over there, there's that taco place right next door, and it's like this gigantic.
Well, there's tons of good clubs that are in malls. Like you got Cap City Comedy Club in Austin is in a strip mall, and it's like one of the best clubs ever.
Yeah.
The Punchline in San Francisco is in a mall. It's literally in a mall.
So is Levity in Nyack.
Yeah, I know. And that club rocks. I love that place.
Yeah.
The only thing is when they put up their talent at that hotel across the street, and literally all the hotel rooms look out to a graveyard. It's just one of those things. Moses Storm has posted about it. It's like one of those things, like just so quintessential that you're like, let me get checked in, and you just open up the blinds and just rows of dead people. You're just like,
yeah.
Greg, what do you think about? I mean, you talked about like just masturbating and fucking learning. Maybe not, but throughout the whole pandemic, watch Netflix. Did you do anything creative that you're proud of?
I didn't do shit. I didn't do anything. I had all good intentions, and I did like morning. There's a thing called The Artist's Way. It's a book about how to be creative, and it tells you to do your morning pages. So you wake up in the morning, you make a cup of coffee, and you sit down for half an hour and you write, and you don't do anything else. And you keep moving your fingers, whatever comes out, comes out. So I did that for a couple months and I got a lot of pages done. And then you try to find stuff in there that's usable for stand-up or for something else. Because the whole idea is you're just kind of collecting your thoughts and putting them down, because that's the first step in writing, is just getting words on the page. Because really writing is rewriting. And the hardest step is when you're staring at an empty page. So I found that to be really helpful, and I got some stuff out of that. And I wrote one sitcom script, which is not bad. And then I came up with a show with my friend that we sold to True TV. We sold this comedy game show.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so we've been going back and forth with them during the quarantine, giving them stuff. We just handed in a casting reel for it, and so we'll see what happens with that.
When are you going to be filming it? In LA or New York?
Oh, LA. Yeah.
LA.
When would it come out?
Do you miss New York for things like that when you're encountering like these these pilots and these new shows? Would you rather be in New York or LA to do it?
Definitely LA. I've show run stuff in New York, and it's fucking brutal. It's really hard to get. If writers are good, they're usually already working. Whereas in LA, you've got a lot bigger pool of talent to pull from. You've got more studio space, and I'm staying in my own house instead of being in a fucking Airbnb for 4 months. So no, I prefer it, but it is the thing I like about New York is like I worked on Crashing for a few seasons, and I would spend the summer in New York. Because we would write during the fall and the winter, and then in the spring we would come to New York, and it was just me and one other person would come and do the actual punch up on set. And so I love that, because I never got Brooklyn. Like, having grown up in New York, I never spent much time in Brooklyn. And then I left New York 21 years ago. So Brooklyn only kind of emerged in terms of the stand-up scene since I left. So I hadn't been out there. So it was kind of cool I'd write during the day, and then at night I'd go out and I'd do spots at the Knitting Factory, or, I'd go into the cellar a lot. And I just love the fact that you can jump on a city bike to connect to a subway, to connect to a fucking boat back to Brooklyn. There's so many ways to get around. And it's like the city becomes so much smaller now.
Yeah. Yeah, it is pretty wild, what's happened with Brooklyn in the last, I think it's more the last 10 years than the last 20 years. I left New York City as a permanent resident in 2002. And, I had friends that would live in like Park Slope or Brooklyn Heights, but that's about, like Park Slope was kind of the line. Like, you didn't really, like, it was it. And now I have people, friends who live literally like in what would have been considered the worst part of Brooklyn. You wouldn't go there unless you really were on a death wish. And now that's just.
Oh yeah, Bed-Stuy is the hot spot now.
Yep. All everywhere. It's crazy. And
Bed-Stuy is infamously in that Billy Joel song as a place to not walk around in. But it's weird that
I always use Billy Joel as a reference for tough neighborhoods.
Yeah. He's the toughest of the tough guys.
Yeah. He's a Long Island guy. He knows what it is. As a Jersey kid, I kind of like oh yeah. My dad was still like
real badass.
He's still, like my dad, who in the 80s was, he was working downtown. He still is nervous about certain neighborhoods. And I'm like, you do understand that it's been a long time. Like, I remember one time I dropped off in downtown and I was like, just take a cab back up the Upper West Side. And he goes, but I don't have any cash. And I go, they take credit cards now. Like, I just,
yeah.
It was one of those things.
Right.
But one of the things though, Greg, is I always hear is that everybody's like, oh, the Brooklyn comedy scene. Did you find it alty out in Brooklyn?
Yeah, I hated it. I found it very judgmental, very PC. I found they were very entitled. Like, the audience felt like they were more important than the performer. Like, you were there by the grace of them. And I felt like there was an agenda about the kind of comedy they wanted to hear. And I'm just not into that. And I'd rather go to the Cellar or the Stand or Stand Up New York or New York Comedy Club, like places where you get more of a mixture of people.
Sure.
So how do you react to that when you're in that environment and you're either about to do a set or you have to go to another set and you're like, ugh, like these people suck.
Yeah, I don't handle it well. I usually lash out at them and I call them on it. And then it's like 25%.
Shocker, Greg.
20, what's that?
I said shocker.
Like 25% of them love it. They dig it. And then 75% just fucking shut down on you like little fucking pussies.
Right.
And so I don't care though, because I'll take that 25%.
Sure. Yeah.
The only reason I asked that question is that, during the pandemic, we did like all these a shit ton of shows, all over the city in parks. And we started doing park shows out in Brooklyn over at, Park Slope and things of that nature, Cooper Park. And one of the things that everyone always says that you can't be a Brooklyn comic and be a club comic at the same time. But I'm finding it more and more that some of this alt stuff seems to be working sometimes in our rooms. Like even what I see, like what Estee's putting up sometimes is a little bit, it's got a voice, but it can be considered a little bit more on the alternative side.
Well, I think the Cellar always did that. I mean, when I was back in New York, there was guys like Rick Shapiro that were really kind of avant-garde. I mean, I would consider Marin an alt comic, and he was a regular at the Cellar. I think the line was more blurred back then. There were guys that like I would go down and do Luna Lounge on Ludlow Street, and then I would go to the Cellar afterwards, and I would see a lot of the same comics: Louis C.K., Todd Barry, Jeff Ross. Like we were working both kinds of rooms. But now it seems like when you go to a place like the UCB, they really don't want to hear attitude comedy as much. They really want to hear you open up about your fucking biography. It's like they've all taken classes on how to do stand-up. And it all has to be about, well, my dad was Persian, but since I'm gay, I had to go to... Oh, please.
Are you?
It's not fucking
and I'm not sure.
therapy.
Is do you and I'm not gonna, but do you think that there is a pussification of our industry as of late?
It depends. I mean, it is what you make of it. I mean, I think if you accept the parameters that room is trying to give you, then you're a pussy. And then I think if you do whatever it is that you do, whatever your style is, whatever your act is, you should do it wherever you go. And I think the danger is when people start trying to figure out what the audience wants and then tries to give it to them. That's not what comedy is. Comedy is, I've got a vision, I've got a perspective. Here's what makes me laugh, and I'm gonna convince a crowd to laugh at this. So you're working from the inside out, not the outside in.
Right. Who drew your Sunday Papers cartoon behind you?
Oh, well, we actually have a different one every single week. We've been doing this show for a year and a half. So we've done like 75 shows. Every single episode, we have different fan generated logo and a different fan song. We have a different theme song every single week.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so dope. It's amazing how fans kind of come around and like are able to like do things. I've watched a lot of these YouTube videos on wrestling, and the fandom is like, I'll get deep into the Reddit threads and kind of, do you see that as well with Sunday Papers, that like they talk to each other and there's almost a community of people that kind of build each other up? I hear these stories of people that are like, one person like was flooded out, obviously during this last hurricane that just kind of hit us, and hasn't had a place to stay. And this Reddit thread that I was reading, all these people kind of came together and were able to find this person housing for him and his grandmother for the next like 2 weeks. Yeah. Do you have the same kind of collection of people that are kind of like it's almost a weird kind of cultish with your following?
It's really nice. Like when I go, people send me stuff all the time. Like this guy knows that I play golf with my son, and he custom makes putters, really high-end putters. These are like $400 or $500 putters. Whoa. And so he had to send our measurements and what colors we wanted and what style of putter, and he sent us those. And then other people will send you like, artwork. This one woman from the Netherlands sent me this care package with all this Dutch candies and cookies in it, and it's really nice. It's like, it's the more personal the better. I love getting that stuff. People are very generous.
You got to make it into t-shirts.
What's that?
You got to make all those drawings into t-shirts for your merch store.
I think we're gonna do coffee cups for Christmas this year.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, we're having a contest. We're gonna put the top 10 logos that we like on the website, and the listeners are gonna vote, and we're gonna pick the top one and make a coffee mug for Christmas.
Oh, that's sweet. I mean, that one behind you is really cool.
Yeah, it's nice, right?
Yeah, it's killer. You're listening to another episode of the Somewhat Damaged Podcast, part of the Storic Media Podcast Network, and brought to you by Corona Premier, now available on draft. Are you still selling pins at your shows?
Oh yeah, selling those pins, baby. You gotta have them.
I have one. It's the same guy that made yours made one of me.
Oh really?
Me too. Yeah. And
yeah, he does a great job. I'll tell you
oh my God, they are awesome.
It's better than going on the road with a suitcase full of t-shirts. I got a baggie. I got a freezer baggie full of pins.
Yep.
Put it right in my bag. Cash only. No credit cards. No Venmo. No bullshit. Yep. I don't need some guy standing there. Oh wait, how do you spell Fitzsimmons? No, fuck you. Give me a $10 bill or you move on. I don't need to lose 8 customers because you can't spell Fitzsimmons. You want the pin? You give me cash.
Amen. It's because I bought 2 pins from you at the show in Plano, because for one, I'm like, all right, this show is free. It's my duty to have to at least spend $20 on a couple of pins. So I bought the pins, and I had such a good time watching people come up to you to buy these pins. I must have stood there for 10 minutes just watching people come up, and I'm like, he has to want to just literally take someone out by their legs at this point. Like, everyone wants to take a picture, but tell you the story about something. And I know it's kind of cool to interact with your fans that way, but at some point you just don't want to hear about some kid's sister.
I mean, it's tough because I try to be kind of emotionally available to people as they come out, because it means a lot to me that they made it out, and I do like putting a face to a listener.
Sure.
A lot of these people are podcast fans, and I like to know a little bit about them. But there is inevitably, over the course of the weekend, 1 or 2 people that have had too much to drink, and they don't respect your personal space.
Yep.
They get super close, especially with COVID. Like, don't fucking talk into my face, face. And you want to take a selfie, but you haven't pulled up the phone app, the camera app, and so your girlfriend's trying to figure out, and your phone is locked. She doesn't know the password. 15 people have now left without a pin. Fucking get your shit together.
You got to do it with the deli machine. Like, you got to give the numbers so people come up when they're called.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
that's good. Somebody did show me that on Venmo that there's like a barcode that people can just
scan.
Come up and scan. Yep. I might try that, but this way, Uncle Sam don't need to know about my.
It's all that pin money that's in the suitcase on the way home.
I mean, I'll have to say that it was like for a you can get away with it. I mean, but do you have a lot of comics, younger comics that come up to you after shows on the road? And what's your biggest advice that you kind of give them?
Oh, Jesus. What advice do you give a comedian?
No, but let's say you got a comic, and I'll deep in a little bit. I mean, in New York, it's it's in LA. You could probably I think that it's kind of you kind of know what the system is. But what is your advice to somebody in fucking Plano, Texas, that is open micing it right now, that barely maybe does 1 mic at most a week? Like, how do you what kind of advice do you fucking give them to make it in their comedy career, or just to do something more?
Well, I think it's all about, right now is an amazing time to be starting out in comedy, because there's so many outlets for your creativity. And I think, you guys know what it's like to try to produce comedy shows. And that's something that, if you've got the personality for that, that's a really good route to get stage time, because say you start a show in a coffee house, and all of a sudden all these comics want to be on your show, and then maybe some of those comics produce their own shows, and so there's a little bit of a symbiotic relationship. And it's also guarantees you can get on there regularly. So that I always tell people to try to do that. I also think like come up a way that you're going to put your content online, whether it's a podcast or, you know, a series of Instagram videos or, you know, write a comic strip, whatever. Like come up with a way that you're going to express yourself, because you don't get better unless you do. You have to do, you know, and like just creating content helps you find your voice, and it doesn't always have to be just doing stand-up. You know, you might flesh out your stand-up voice by doing man on the street videos. You know, it's all one muscle, and you gotta work it out. So just stay busy and stay in your town. You know, like Plano, Texas, you got Dallas right there. You can drive to Houston, wherever. Like, you know, there's so many comedy scenes that when you're starting out, you're better off being in than a big market like New York or LA. Yeah.
How did you take all the outdoor shows in LA the last, you know, year? Like, do you like that? Or like, the one you did with us is obviously weird, right? Because of the layout and the format of that place. But like, I imagine
that was
an outdoor show.
That was a weird layout. Yeah. But I think I like that people show up. I mean, I think it's kind of implicit when somebody shows up that they want to be entertained and that they want to partake in this social experiment that is stand-up comedy. It's like they're saying, I'll take the leap of faith and sit in a chair without my phone on and not talk, and I will listen to you. And that's something that as a performer, I always feel I take that seriously. You know, it's a social contract that we've made, that I'm going to do my best to make you laugh. Even if that means I'm going to shit on you, it's still, that's my way of making you laugh.
Right.
But I'm going to give it 100% no matter what the situation. You know, if it's on a fucking boat, if it's on a video, if I'm doing I just did a cameo for somebody about 20 minutes ago, you know, you got to give it 100% because they're giving you something, and you have to give it back.
And what was the weirdest place that you did a show during the pandemic?
Well, there was this
the most interesting, weirdest or interesting.
There was this yard in Los Feliz that was like, it looked like Vietnam. It was like shrubs and bushes, and I think the guy had like garden tours that he did during the day, and then at night he set up this stage, and there was a tree house with like a dozen people in it that was like way up here.
Right.
Yes, I've seen clips of this place.
Yeah, it was insane because each audience member was stuck behind a different shrub, embedded throughout this yard, and it was fucking weird. And it was bring your own booze. They were all fucked up. It was crazy.
It's a camo show.
How did it feel to see a real audience though after that? Like, and playing in a club? I mean, obviously, pandemic, you're getting booked again on the road. You're getting full rooms. How did it feel that first full room? Did you have a sense of like almost being nervous?
I think I was more like, it made me focus more because I was worried that I wouldn't remember my act. And so I would bring a sheet of paper up on stage with me and I put it on the stool. And I was actually surprised how little I had to look at the paper. Like, it kind of came back to me, but I had some bits that I had been working on before the pandemic, and I started them. And then halfway through, I realized I have no idea how the rest of this joke goes. And I would have to wing it and come up with a new ending because I didn't remember the original ending. And that was interesting. But I think the audience understood that we were all, you know, getting back to it again. This was makeup sex. Right. It's not going to be great. You may not come, but I'm going to give it 100%. I'm going to do some oral. We're going to talk afterwards.
A little light pillow talk afterwards. I'm sorry about that. Just lots of apologizing.
Didn't mean to hurt you. I got a leg cramp. I apologize.
Yeah, right.
So can we just talk about the Stern Show for a second? And how long were you actively like guesting on the show? Because you were on the show a million times.
Yeah, I did it like 40 or 50 times. I was on, I guess I started around 2000.
Right.
And I, geez, I don't know how many years, probably a dozen, at
Right.
least, maybe 15, probably about 15 years.
Yeah.
And it was, and then he gave me my own show I was on for about 10 years.
Yeah.
And it got to where I was the only show on the channel except for his
Right.
for like a year, because all the other shows got canceled because they started returning to, eventually they just wanted Stern. They realized that the listeners only want to hear Stern on the Stern channels. And so they went to just reruns of him rather than new programming. But it was a good run. And then his show in terms of going on it now, it used to be 5 hours a day, 5 days a week. And now it's 3 hours a day, 3 days a week.
Yeah.
With a lot of weeks. And so the guest list is like, Jennifer Aniston, maybe Gene Simmons if he's lucky.
Right.
Like they just don't bring in comics anymore.
Yeah.
So it's a shame. It's a slightly different show. I still think it's a very high quality show.
Sure.
I like what he's doing now, but but I had a nice run.
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, I still am. I consider myself a regular listener, but I was a really everyday listener for up until probably 5, 6, 7 years ago, and maybe when Artie ultimately left, and I still went through a little while. But that was when it seemed like you were on the show like every week. And those were awesome shows. And to me, it seems like the show, yes, his guest list is what you said it is, but that's not what I grew up on Howard Stern. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like I grew up on Howard Stern, and when he was on K-Rock in the 80s in the afternoon, listening to Lesbian Dial-A-Date on my boombox playing basketball, and through those years. And I think the years that Artie was on were my favorite years of that show. Right. Yeah. And it's such a different show now. It's a great show. He's probably one of the best interviewers of all time. Not probably is one of the best interviewers of all time, but it's a much different show now, even though he still talks about sex and all the same shit he's always talked about, but it's just a more grown-up show.
Were you a Howard loyalist, Greg, or did you go over to the O&A world a little bit?
No O&A. Never did it. No interest.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, the lines were drawn. When I was on the show, the lines were drawn. There was they badmouthed each other, and I felt like it wasn't. I never loved that show. I only listened to it a few times, but I never loved it. I know certain comics like Louis C.K. liked it, and there was a bunch of comics that went on there that were good, and certainly Jim Norton and people like that made a career out of it.
Totally.
But I was on the home team.
Yeah, me too. I probably listened to that show twice, maybe. Bits and
funny thing, I was the complete opposite. I was an O&A fanatic. I was a 102.7 guy. I didn't listen to Howard.
That's a Jersey thing.
I don't think it was a Jersey thing. I think it was just, I think one of the things was that there was, I don't know. I think there was more when Howard went, I think there was more of, it was an interview. I think there was more shock in Jock with O&A than anything. I think Howard found his groove, and, as being like a teenage kid, I almost kind of, I like that kind of humor. I mean, things like Stephen Lynch that were just like so audacious, people screwing in freaking in vestibules at churches. It kind of spoke to me. But Howard was more of a person that I've always felt was a good interviewer. I've never really thought of him. Even when watching Private Parts, I was like, really? That was Howard Stern? The whole fart man thing and everything like that. But I don't know. It's interesting to hear how those were lines that were drawn.
I always look at Howard as more like P.T. Barnum. Like, he understands a good sideshow act. He understands what makes people intrigued, what makes people laugh, what makes people listen and talk about the show. I think he knows when an interview is starting to sag. He knows when to poke a little bit and start asking the questions like, have you ever had a lesbian experience? Have you taken up the ass? The standard questions that I loved. I loved when he would have fucking, like Demi Moore on and then ask her if she'd had anal. It was like, who would do that? It's fucking crazy.
Like that's like he
But
did with Gwyneth Paltrow, like famously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think he knows where the line is, and I think he's just a guy who's always looked at radio as like, what would I want to hear if I was listening? And he kind of does that.
I mean, I don't think there's anyone in the history of entertainment that's made more people part of the show and like a known part of the show than he has. Clearly Howard is the man, right? But all the Whack Pack and even the other guys on the show, they've all become stars in the sphere of the Howard Stern show, right? But some have gone farther than that, and I can't think of any show or anything that the main guy on the show has done that for such a wide range of people since he started his show.
Well, maybe Ed Sullivan. He launched these guys called the Beatles.
No. I don't. No. That's not what I mean. I don't mean it that way. I mean that people that are regulars on the show he's had such a wide umbrella and net of people that are regular.
I mean, yeah, Beetlejuice was just nominated for Academy Awards. So
yeah, I heard that. Really
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Take the Beatles out of it. Take the Beatles out of it. You win.
I mean, listen. I don't know how many times I've listened to C-SPAN and heard Baba Booey, Howard Stern.
You hear it on golf tournaments all the time.
What was that, Greg? I'm sorry.
I said, no, you hear Baba.
Oh, that still makes me happy every time.
Yeah, every time.
Hearing Baba Booey is my favorite thing in the world. Yeah, watching the Masters.
Yeah. Or I love it when the sports guy uses a Stern reference, when someone hits a home run, or something like that, touchdown pitch.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Hit him with the hind.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right, John, sorry that I lose on the Beatles comparison. Whatever.
I mean, that's a big fucking statement.
It's not what I was saying. I didn't say he launched bigger people.
I mean, Ass Napkin Ed really he's selling out a lot of the like fire stations in Eastern Pennsylvania. It's been really well.
Listen, I've seen that Jeff the Drunk Lollapalooza show. It's wild. It spells out stadium. Yeah. It's stadium worthy. Blue Iris, can't beat that.
Oh man.
Anyway.
Do you still listen? Speaking back to radio, though, I mean, like, do you listen to terrestrial radio? Do you listen to Sirius XM or anything like that, Greg? Now,
I was just listening to Stern on my way over to my office.
Is that all you listen to?
I listen to Stern. Yeah, I mean, he's been off for the last week or two, so I was happy to put it on, and he was back today.
Yeah.
But then there's a station in LA that's really good. It's like 88.6 or something. It's like a public funded alternative rock station, and LA radio I don't love. There's really like K-Rock is too like Third Eye Blindish, that arena of stuff. Right. There's no great stations in LA. I always preferred New York stations. I liked FUV, the Fordham Public Station.
Yeah,
really good. And I grew up listening to WNEW.
WNEW you listen to?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way of like kind of talk radio, I feel has gone away. And this is something that because I used to be I was in radio at Seton Hall. I was at 89.5. And I always thought to myself, I wanted to be a broadcaster until I didn't. But I almost feel like, that kind of art form is now gone. And it's sad because I almost feel that there would be, if we had terrestrial radio now that was like at the peak and the height that it was, would comics have a better shot of kind of getting in there and kind of making it?
Right. Well, I think right now podcasting is the new radio, and you see that people are able to cut out all the fat, all the commercials. You had a lot of people that were good DJs and had a lot to say, but had to play records that they didn't want to play. And, you know, I grew up, my father was in radio my whole life. He was on WNEW AM my whole life. And, you know, he would have been a great podcaster, but instead he had to play like a fucking, you know, Burt Bacharach song and some show tune and then talk for 3 minutes and then play a commercial. And, you know, I think the ability to sit down and do what we just did and just talk with no interruptions and have listeners be able to go right to the meat of it without any distractions, like it's over. Terrestrial's over.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there was just, I mean, you know, one more hint on just topic on there was the idea of like the intros of music, you know, Elvis Duran. But one of my favorites in New York was Broadway Billy. I don't know if you guys remember who Broadway Billy was, but he was this DJ who did rhymes, and he's got a TikTok out now that's like blowing the fuck up. And it's so great to kind of like people being like, oh, that's so cool how he does rhymes and mixes it. And he says it, and he says his last part right before the lyrics start. And I was like, that's just that's an art form that will never be there ever again. But Greg, listen, I know that you got to go, but Greg, you want to ask our final question? Let's flip it around this time, buddy.
Sure. So, Greg, we'll make it really quick. You got to jump. What was the best thing you ate in the last few weeks? Always end on food.
The best thing I've ate in the last few weeks.
So from vacation forward.
Since vacation, because vacation was nonstop. We went to Barney Greengrass in New York.
Right.
Oh, hell yeah.
The Sturgeon King. And, you know, we got like lox and whitefish and the best bagel in New York.
Next time you're in town, 72nd Street, there's a pastrami queen now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Pastrami queen right on 72nd. And I think it's like, it's right before literally right before the park. It's fantastic. But you heard about Barney's though, that it shut down for a little bit because of health code violations.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Still good.
Why?
Like I still go there. Health code violations.
Oh, Jesus. Really? Yeah, that place is antiquated. They still have a push button cash register and they only take cash.
You got in for the last
like everything is the same as it was 100 years ago when it opened. So I can imagine there's a couple pieces of dirty fish in the corner somewhere that he didn't up.
The reason they keep it Times Square. So is that it? Would that be the best? Would that be your best, or you have something that tops it?
I think for the New York trip, that was the best. But then since I've been back, my wife does this baked salmon with vegetables that she made a couple nights ago. And, you know, she was never like much of a cook. Like she made food. I don't cook. She makes all the food. And it was always decent, always healthy.
Right.
But then recently started getting into like trying to really cook some good meals and looking up recipes. And she's kicking ass. And this fucking salmon dish, it was so goddamn good. I made love to her that night. I performed oral, honestly, longer than I would normally do because of the meal that she. And the leading man's heart is through his stomach for sure.
Through a delicious salmon entree.
Yeah.
Well, there's no better way to wrap than on that note.
Greg, thanks so much, man. We'll fucking see you when we're out in town. And dude, when you're back in New York, please come see us, or we'll grab some wings upstairs at the Olive Tree.
Sounds great. All right, guys.
Hey,
thanks.
Dude. Thanks a lot, man. Have a good one.
Later.